You ever get really invested in a game, look at the achievements list, and come across one that makes you think to yourself, oh man, there's no way I'll ever complete that one. For a while, this was how I felt about Hollow Knight Speedrun 1 and Speedrun 2 achievements, among a couple others, but we can get to those in another video. For those unfamiliar, Speedrun 1 asks you to beat the game in under 10 hours, and Speedrun 2 asks you to beat the game in under 5 hours. According to HowLongToBeat.com, Hollow Knight takes, on average, 27 hours for players to complete. This is understandable since the game has a massive world for exploring, getting lost in, and uncovering secrets. But how long does it take me personally to beat the game? I had recently completed a casual playthrough of Hollow Knight in around 11 hours, and that included some wandering around and a lot of optional stuff. So when I saw that 11-hour number, I knew that I could definitely complete Speedrun 1 if I cut out optional activities and just focused on beating the game in under 10 hours. But how the heck would I get my time down from 11 hours to below 5 hours? Well, turns out it was way easier than I thought. Before we go over the run, the first thing I need to do is give a massive thank you and shout out to 2C Phoenix on YouTube for their incredible guide on how to beat Hollow Knight in under 5 hours. I'll be linking the video guide in the description. I can't stress enough how useful and beginner friendly their route is, and it's the route I'll be following for this video. Our playthrough begins as all Hollow Knight playthroughs do, with a descent into King's Pass. We're going to need as much geo as possible for some important purchases this run, so I made sure to grab the hidden geo deposits along the way to Dirtmouth. We also probably won't have much use for Fury of the Fallen this run, so I went ahead and skipped the optional path leading up to it. There's not really much to note in Dirtmouth, so I descended the well and made my way down the left side of the crossroads to talk to Cornifer and buy a map of the crossroads. You can totally skip buying the map at all in the speedrun if you know where you're going or just have a map pulled up on your computer or something, but I was planning and recording this attempt on my Steam Deck at the time, and the map was inexpensive and really convenient. From the spot where Cornifer's at, we head right towards the Grubsmother, but we make sure to stop at the nearby stag bench above her arena first. This is important for a mechanic the Hollow Knight community has dubbed bench warping. In case you're unfamiliar, bench warping involves quitting your game to be automatically transported to the last bench that you sat on, which can be an incredibly powerful strategy for saving time and preventing some backtracking. Once we've sat on the bench, we can head to the bottom right of the crossroads to take out the Grubsmother and save Sly. We'll be needing to buy the lantern from Sly later, among a couple of other things, since I definitely don't know how to traverse Deep Nest without the lantern. It's time for the bench warp we set up back at the stag station, and we'll take a moment to collect 2 grubs above the station. First is behind this breakable wall, and above that one, we can defeat this big beefy boy for our second grub. Our bench is still set to the stag station, so we can quit and reload the game again to be brought closer to our next destination, the False Knight. There is a cool secret trick to skip past the False Knight in the middle of the fight, but it's probably just better for us to defeat him and take his geostash, so that's exactly what we do. We meet the Snail Shaman and earn the Vengeful Spirit. It's time to head up to Dirtmouth for a quick purchase from Sly. On the way there, we stop at Grub Daddy's place for some extra cash, and by now we have more than enough to be able to purchase Gathering Swarm. The little bits of geo we can miss throughout the run definitely add up, so having this on while we explore can definitely help. It also saves lots of minor amounts of time throughout the run by not having to take extra time to go pick up every single bit of geo along the way. With Gathering Swarm equipped, we can start making our way to Green Path to fight Hornet and get the Mothwing Cloak, granting us the ability to dash. I did get a little lost on my way to Green Path somehow. It was 1 in the morning, leave me alone. But luckily getting lost led me to my 3rd grub out of 5 that we need to be collecting during this run. Once in Green Path, the game wants you to take the long way around when you see Hornet up on this ledge that's just out of reach, but we can actually just lure this little mosquito dude over to the ledge and bounce off his head for a big shortcut. Again, I got a bit lost on the way to Hornet like I always do somehow, and I definitely wish I had a map pulled up while I was playing, but eventually I ran into Zote and realized I was heading in the right direction. Saving Zote does nothing for us this run, so we save some time by not fighting the big Vengefly and leave him to become a nice tasty snack. Before heading into Hornet's arena, we make sure to sit at the nearby stag bench just in case. We also still need all the geo we can get for later, so we break this hidden wall and pick up a Wanderer's Journal. The Hornet 1 fight is pretty easy as well, and I claim the Mothwing Cloak so we can press on to the Fungal Wastes. The best way into the Fungal Wastes at this point is with a quick bench warp to the stag station and then a stag ride into Dirtmouth. From Dirtmouth, we'll drop down to the bottom left side of the crossroads and use our new dash ability to enter the Fungal Wastes. The first stop we make here is to Leg Eater's shop to buy Fragile Strength. Unfortunately, I was a bit short on geo for it when I arrived, so I set up a bench warp and decided to come back after fighting the fungal ogres just down into the left of Leg Eater for an extra charm notch. With the ogres defeated, we can bench warp back to Leg Eater and have both Strength and Gathering Swarm equipped at the same time, without the need to overcharm. We'll need to be very careful not to break Fragile Strength, otherwise we'll lose a lot of time gathering more geo and traveling back to Leg Eater for a repair. However, this can be avoided by simply bench warping whenever we get down to 1 mask and don't feel safe. From here, we need to head to the Mantis village in order to collect the Mantis claw so that we can perform wall climbs. Before we entered the village, I chose to sit at the bench at the bottom right of the waist just in case we die. Once we've stormed the village and collected the Mantis claw, we'll head down to the Mantis throne room for a quick showdown. In case you don't know, you can wall climb up the left side of the arena before challenging the Mantis lords for a little extra health via lifeblood, which makes the fight slightly easier. Beating the Mantis lords is quick work thanks to fragile strength and lots of sisters of battle practice in the Hall of Gods. Our victory grants us access to the treasure room just above their combat arena, which holds a good amount of geo, and even the Mark of Pride charm if we want some easier time with nail pogos in certain areas. And now that we've cleaned out the Mantis tribe's retirement fund, we can head back down and through the door into Deep Nest the lords were guarding. In this visit to Deep Nest, we'll be grabbing the tram pass in the failed tramway and leaving immediately. The route to and from there is very tedious, so we make sure to set our bench near the hot springs and not at the one closer to the tramway to save some time on backtracking. We grab the tram pass, bench warp back to the hot springs, and from here we can head right to the tram so that we can ride it to the ancient basin. Resting at the tram bench is a good idea now to set up the next bench warp. We'll head out of the tram and to the left down a secret path where we can dash or fight our way past some Molex for a pale ore. At this point, we can bench warp back to the tram, swap off strength for Mark of Pride for a bit, and climb up into the City of Tears. Mark of Pride is useful here for pogoing off of these weird spiky things to secure another Wanderer's Journal. Seriously though, what the heck are these things? Mark of Pride will also help us pogo off these spikes on the way up the elevator shaft and into the right side of the City of Tears. We've now made it to one of the best places in the game for grinding geo, and good thing too because we're about to need 3,700 of it total from here. Our first stop is to the nearby stag bench in King's Station. We wall climb up above the bench and pogo off the spikes. We can grab a hollowness seal hidden on the left hand side. From here, we can pay the stag toll, swap off Mark of Pride, and re-equip Fragile Strength. I make my way to the hidden path in the bottom right of King's Station and grab our 4th grub. And now, our geo grinding session in the City of Tears can truly begin. The first step I took was to head into this specific room and fight the Golden Husk for 420 geo. There's also another door here that leads to a Great Husk guarding a grub, so we gain our 5th and final grub along with 50 geo from the Great Husk. This is also the perfect time to go sell all of those artifacts we've been gathering to Relic Seeker Lem. On the way to his shop, we can grab another Hallowness seal up on these platforms for another good chunk of geo. After selling every artifact we have, we can head to the nailsmith and buy 2 nail upgrades since we snagged that pale ore earlier in the run. The nail upgrades will make the process of defeating the Great Husk much quicker, which is why we're grabbing the upgrades now. After buying these 2 nail upgrades and paying the stag toll for 300 geo at King's Station, we need to have 2,800 geo left over for a couple more purchases. Since we didn't quite have that amount at this point, we spent some time fighting Great Husks and bench warping to respawn them until we had enough. Now that I have the 2,800 geo, I can take the stag back to Dirtmouth to purchase the Lumafly Lantern and 2 mask shards from Sly. Heading back down to the crossroads, we can get a 3rd mask shard as a reward from Grubfather for rescuing 5 grubs. And then our 4th and final mask shard of the run can be found in this area of the crossroads that we couldn't reach before. This grants us a quick and easy 6th mask. With the lantern acquired, we can make our way into Crystal Peak through this dark area on the right side of the Forgotten Crossroads. Our next goal is to grab the Crystal Heart, so we head up, right, and down into the area where it's kept. We can also skip the Crystal Guardian along the way since we don't really need money anymore and fighting him would just consume more time. With the Crystal Heart acquired, we can drop into the resting grounds and acquire the Dream Nail, the last power-up we need to be able to finish the run. It's finally time to take care of the Dreamers, and we'll be taking out the one that's my least favorite to visit first, Hera the Beast. We can take the stag from the resting grounds back to King's Station, and from there we can head back down to take the tram into Deep Nest. Thanks to the Lumafly Lantern, traveling through Deep Nest and into the distant village is no big deal. And we can navigate through the Beast Den to get to our first streamer just like that. Our next streamer is going to be Monomon the Teacher, who normally you need either the Shade Cloak or Isma's Tear to reach. But there's actually a very specific way you can crystal dash into that area without either of those upgrades. We'll be taking the stag back into Dirtmouth, heading down to the now infected crossroads and into this room with the pool of acid. If you press up against this ledge and charge your crystal dash with just the right timing, you can squeeze through here and wall jump up to safety. This actually took me quite a few tries to get the timing right on, and I even did a save quit when I got down to 1 mask and didn't want to break Fragile Strength. Did eventually make it through, but if you're really struggling to pull this off, it might just be better to practice this trick on a different save file to not run up your timer too much. And now that we're in, we can head to the teacher's archives and challenge Umu. I made sure to grab the bench just above the jellyfish just in case, and good thing too because I really choked hard on my first attempt. This caused fragile strength to break, meaning we would have to make a trip to repair it soon. My second try against Umu with Mark of Pride went much better, and the big jelly boy went down. If we take the path on the right hand side, we can reach our second dreamer with the crystal dash, and without the need for Isma's Tear or the monarch wings. Only one dreamer left to go, so we stop off at Leg Eaters for a quick repair on strength and head back into the City of Tears. You're intended to reach Lurian the Watcher using the monarch wings, but some conveniently placed breakable junk allows us to just pogo up to this area and skip the need for the wings altogether. I make sure to bench in Watcher's Spire just in case, and we're not messing around with this run, so we drop the chandelier on the Watcher Knights to remove one of them from the equation before the fight even starts. The fight's a bit harder without access to Downspell or Shade Dash, but I pull through and take out the last dreamer. Only one obstacle remains in our way before we can roll credits, so it's time to head back to the Infected Crossroads and challenge the Hollow Knight in the Black Egg Temple. Without too many upgrades, this was actually a somewhat difficult challenge. I got pretty nervous and actually choked on my first attempt. It's at this point that I'm wondering, how much time do I have left in my 5-hour deadline? Do I have enough time to repair fragile strength and try again? Or should I just go for it and hope I can win without strength's big DPS boost? I sat there a moment and ultimately decided that I didn't want to risk leaving to repair fragile strength and not finishing in under 5 hours, so I just threw on Mark of Pride and went for it one more time. It was tense, but luckily I was able to pull off the victory even without strength. Now, all that remained was to see how quickly I'd done it, and wow. I beat the game in only about 2.5 hours, and the achievements were both mine in just one try. That 2.5 hours even included getting a little lost on the way to Hornet, messing up a bit on the Acid Crystal Dash skip, dying to Umu, and dying to the Hollow Knight. Without all of those mistakes, I probably could have beaten the game in somewhere around 2 hours or 2 hours and 15 minutes. With 2.5 hours to spare, you can definitely go grab some extra upgrades like notches or charms if some of the tougher fights feel too challenging for you, especially Watcher Knights and the Hollow Knight. And just like that, 2 achievements I used to think I would never have were now mine. And if I can do it with plenty of time to spare, maybe you can too. You never know until you try. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this one in the future. Please consider joining the Patreon to support me for just $1 a month. Patrons get early previews of upcoming videos and thumbnails, link in the description. Thanks again, and see you next time.